blood, guts, and zero gratitude. Welcome to life as a gladiator's doctor in ancient Rome, where your patients actively try to kill each other for a living and your success rate is measured by how long they survive before inevitable, gruesome death. My name is Marcus Kaeso, and I never wanted to be a medicus for gladiators. I had dreams, lofty, ridiculous dreams, of serving in the home of a wealthy patrician or perhaps even the imperial palace. Instead, I find myself kneeling in blood-soaked sand, desperately trying to stitch together men who were, just moments ago, attempting to disembowel one another for the entertainment of the mob. Let me explain why being a gladiator's doctor is possibly the worst medical position in the Roman Empire. And believe me, in a world where the cutting edge of medicine involves drilling holes in people's skulls to let the evil spirits out, that's saying something. First, there's the matter of your patients. Unlike normal doctors who treat people actively trying to stay alive, my patients are professional death seekers. They train relentlessly to become more efficient at murdering one another. Then they're thrown into an arena where their sole purpose is to bleed impressively. It's like being a shipwright who exclusively builds vessels designed to sink. Marcus, I need to be combat ready by tomorrow's games. Thrax the Thracian once told me while holding his own intestines in place with his hand. Just put everything back where it belongs and sew me up tight. I stared at him. You have a sword wound that's exposed your lower intestine. You need weeks of rest, not another fight. He laughed. The emperor himself will be attending. I fight or I die anyway. Make it work. And that's another charming aspect of this profession, the pressure. When a wealthy senator's wife has a fever, her doctor has weeks to try different treatments. When my gladiator has his arm nearly severed, I have minutes to decide whether to attempt to save the limb or amputate before he bleeds out. All while his lanista, his owner, hovers nearby calculating how much this injury is costing him. Can he still fight with one arm? Is a question I've been asked with alarming frequency and complete seriousness. The Romans have developed surprisingly sophisticated medical techniques for treating wounds. We have specialized tools like the spathomyle for spreading ointments and the sciathoscomyle for removing foreign objects from wounds. We use metal forceps, scalpels, and needles that would be recognizable to modern surgeons. We even perform successful amputations with an impressive survival rate, considering we have no concept of germs or antiseptics. But here's the cruel irony. All this medical knowledge developed primarily for the battlefield and the arena. We've become exceptionally good at patching up catastrophic injuries because Romans love watching men create catastrophic injuries in each other. Which brings me to another delightful aspect of my job. The conditions. Picture yourself performing delicate surgery in a cramped, dark cell that reeks of sweat, blood, and excrement. Your operating table is often a straw mat. Your light source is a flickering oil lamp. Your surgical assistant is usually a slave with no medical training who's as likely to vomit on the patient as to hand you the right tool. Hold this wound closed. I once instructed such an assistant while tending to Marius the Gaul after a particularly brutal bout. I can see his heart beating, the slave whispered, transfixed. Yes, and I'd like it to continue doing so, which requires your hands on this wound, not gawking at his internal organs. The assistant promptly fainted, knocking over my one good lamp and plunging us into darkness. Marius died before dawn. Did I mention we have no effective painkillers? Oh yes, that's another highlight of my profession. We have wine, mandrake, and opium poppy extract for the lucky ones. For everyone else, there's a stick to bite down on and the cold comfort that shock will eventually render them unconscious. This is going to hurt, I warned Spiculus, a renowned gladiator who took a trident through his shoulder. More than having a trident through my shoulder? He asks through gritted teeth. Surprisingly, yes. His screams bring guards running, thinking there's an escape attempt. They find only me, elbow deep in the man's shoulder, trying to remove metal fragments while he convulses in agony. Just another Tuesday. The greatest indignity, however, might be the paradox of success in my position. If I do my job exceptionally well and save a gladiator's life, my reward is sending him back to the arena to face death again. The better I am at my job, the more suffering I ultimately enable. It's like repeatedly rescuing a man from drowning only to throw him back into the sea. Consider the case of Spartus, a retiarius net and trident fighter, who survived 17 matches over 3 years. Each time he came to me with increasingly horrific injuries. A collapsed lung, a fractured skull, multiple stab wounds. I patched him up with increasing ingenuity, proud of my work keeping him alive against all odds. "You're a miracle worker, Marcus," he told me after his 16th bout. "Without you, I'd have died years ago." The following week, I watched from the medical station as he finally met his end, slaughtered by a murmillo who severed his hamstrings and then slowly, deliberately dispatched him while the crowd roared their approval. 3 years of my painstaking care ended for entertainment. That night, the Lanista was furious about losing a valuable fighter. "You should have made him stronger," he snarled at me, as if I controlled the laws of human physiology. Even the gladiators themselves have a complex relationship with their doctors. They're grateful when we ease their suffering but resent us for prolonging their careers. Many secretly pray for a clean death in the arena rather than the lingering agony of a botched recovery. "Sometimes I wish you weren't so skilled," Carix the Germanic once confessed while I set his broken arm for the 3rd time. "A quick death would be kinder than this endless patching." I understand their perspective. In our world, death can be a mercy, which makes my Hippocratic oath to do no harm philosophically complicated, to say the least. The real absurdity is how the Romans celebrate gladiators while barely acknowledging those who keep them alive. Citizens wear medallions bearing the likeness of famous fighters. Children play with gladiator dolls. Wealthy women secretly arrange liaisons with their favorite arena champions. No one makes a clay figurine of Marcus the medicus with his needle and thread. Not that I'm complaining. Fame in Rome is a double-edged gladius. I knew a physician named Septimus who gained renown for saving a popular gladiator's life after his jugular was nicked. The emperor was so impressed he appointed Septimus to the imperial medical staff, where he was promptly executed 6 months later when he failed to cure the emperor's gout. Sometimes obscurity is preferable to recognition. Perhaps the most ridiculous aspect of my profession is what happens when a gladiator does die despite my efforts. The Lanista demands an explanation, as if any doctor could save a man whose liver has been turned into paste by a war hammer. "He was worth 50,000 sesterces," one outraged owner informed me after his champion succumbed to injuries. "I expect compensation for your failure." I gestured to the man's body, which had been cleaved almost in half diagonally from shoulder to hip. "Compensation? Even Asclepius himself couldn't have saved this man. Perhaps you should bill the gods for this one." I narrowly avoided a flogging for that comment. The management of gladiatorial schools does not appreciate medical humor, it seems. In truth, we gladiatorial physicians do save many lives against incredible odds. We're pioneers in wound management and trauma care. We can reattach fingers, set complex fractures, and suture wounds that would make even hardened legionaries faint. Some of our techniques won't be rediscovered for over 1,000 years after Rome falls. But here's the final cruel joke of my profession. Despite our remarkable skills, history will largely forget us. Medical treatises will record the names of court physicians who treated emperors' headaches, while those of us who performed daily miracles in the blood and dirt will disappear from memory. The gladiators themselves will live on in mosaics, sculptures, and stories, while we remain shadows behind them, nameless hands with needles and scalpels. So the next time you watch gladiators battle in the Colosseum, spare a thought for the exhausted figure waiting in the wings with a surgical kit and dwindling hope. That's me, Marcus Kaeso, gladiatorial medicus, master of lost causes and impossible repairs. As we like to joke in the medical quarters, though never where the Lanista can hear, our job security is excellent, but the retirement plan is non-existent. After all, in a profession where success means your patients live just long enough to die spectacularly another day, you learn to find humor in the darkest places. And if that doesn't work, there's always wine. Lots and lots of wine. It might not cure anything, but it makes the screaming a little easier to bear, both theirs and mine.